And that was our interview with Dean Kilby. Thank you so much for taking time out of your morning. We were in the night. You were in the morning. You were in Australia. We were in Minnesota. You mistaken us for Michigan in the beginning, but you quickly recovered and truly gave us your time and your mind. Thank you.
The look on your face after he said Michigan was just like not pure disgust, but like
it was defeated.
Defeated for sure.
It was like I don't think he really he either doesn't like know who we are, so he doesn't like. I didn't know his feel for us yet, and it was just a simple miscue.
The best too was right before the interview. Andrew and I were in the midst of setting up Google Hangouts, which is how we're going to start doing our FaceTime interviews, or just like screen interviews, so we can use that for video purposes, pretty much. And I told him, I was like, yeah, so we sent you the link, and he's like, I can't remember my Google password for the life of me. We're like, okay, no worries. And we're like, yeah, like, by the way, we, like, just figured this out, like, 30 minutes ago, and, like, this is our first time. And he was like, well, if you, like, you didn't care to tell me ahead of time that you were going to do it this way? And we just, like, looked at you like, yeah, he's kind of right. Like, we kind of blew that.
Yeah, we screwed up on that one.
Yeah, and so...
Learning from our failures.
Learning from our failures, absolutely. So the next interview, hopefully, will be our first Google Hangouts.
We should Google Hangout together, and then, like, make sure it works, and then we'll do it.
Which we kind of did.
Like 5 seconds before it, and then we got to put more time to it. What the trouble was, I had just arrived into Minnesota, and you had just got home from work, and we came straight up here trying to figure it out, and it took us forever. But moral of the story is, Dean Kilby, thank you. I know you gave us plenty of golden nuggets. Health consumer ownership, stem cell research needs to be talked about. I know it is being talked about, but it needs to be a pressing need. Your life story of the failure and the growth that you took. Thank you for sharing that. Declan, anything
else? I loved how he's officially signed on as a Backpocket mentor. Mm-hmm. It was phenomenal. Me and you. He's just has taken a keen interest in me and you, which we were not expecting at all. You know, when you hop on a phone call with someone who's halfway across the world, down under, as he said, you know, you don't expect those kind of reactions, and he was just kind of a guy that Johnny helped us helped us connect with, and I think that just shows the power of networking, but genuine connecting, just having a conversation with someone, because that's all it was. Mm-hmm. It was asking Dean, you know, and the other thing we probably should mention, which I think was mentioned a little bit in the interview, but we usually we send our questions to Dean, or we usually send our guests questions before, like 24 hours before, so they can review them. Dean said, no, I don't need any questions. I know what my profession is. I know what my life story is. I want to know about you. And
you gave us a list of questions.
He gave us a list of questions for us to answer and reflect on, so he knew who his audience was, and he knew who Andrew and Declan were before he ever got on the phone with us, which I thought was awesome.
It blew me out of the water, and that was fun, too, going through, because they were tough questions. They weren't just simple, like, how long have you been doing this? What's your guys' names? Where are you from? It was like, what are you concerned with? What is your audience most concerned with? How do you see yourself growing? So simple questions, like not really simple questions. They seem simple, but once you want to give this man a true explanation of all of these, and so we spent a good hour going back and forth on the Google Docs, typing, like delete and type, and it was a little conversation. It was fun, and I think we grew because of it, having those questions, having to answer those questions.
Yeah, and that just speaks to who Dean is and who he truly cares about, and he cares about the person, you know, that whoever he's interacting with at that time, he has full attention and full care for that person. Thank you, Dean. We appreciate everything that you've done. Now, trapping the puck and finishing off podcast 55 as it should be finished off.
Yes.
What did we learn in a feel-good story? Andrew, would you like to start us off?
I would love to. Marketing interns, thank you so much for making it this far. We truly appreciate it. And we always appreciate you guys giving us the 5-star review on iTunes and a little comment. Maybe follow us on Instagram or retweet us on Twitter. Give us a post on Facebook. All the above. We always appreciate you guys, marketing interns. You truly do your job to the best of your ability. But finishing how we always do, what did you learn? So I learned this week with these car rides, it was my average quality, but also I learned a lot through taking a car trip with my mother. Podcasts can spark great conversation during a car ride up here. So we would pause the podcast that we were listening to several times, and then we would talk about it for 20 minutes and then restart it. It was super fun.
Kind of like a book club.
It was like a book club. We would listen to something and then something that would spark us, and my mom would pause it and be like, hey, did you ever think about like blah, blah, blah? And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then we'd talk, we have a little conversation, and then play it again. That and audiobooks. Both those, like having like a mystery audiobook, pause it, talk about it like a detective, then play it, have sweet predictions. Like my mom and I had a blast. So I recommend if you wanted to connect with a family member, a friend, go on a long car ride, listen to our podcast, listen to a podcast, or maybe an audiobook, and you'll enjoy it.
I think just reflecting on the things you're taking in, making the most of that car ride is super important too. And when you're in a car, like you have nothing else to do besides, focusing on the road, and you need to be entertained at some point to maintain that focus. I think actively challenging your brain and, asking those questions every once in a while and to keep yourself active within the listening of the podcast, I think is super important. Now, what I learned, so that was a rough transition, but what I learned, great. What did you learn?
Thank you, sir.
So I appreciate that. Gold star. What did I learn is Insta TV. So I woke up this morning. And actually, I woke up, I wouldn't say this morning because when I mean this morning, I meant Thursday morning. I woke up Thursday morning and I went on Instagram, checking the Backpocket as I always do, and I got bombarded by an advertisement, Instagram TV. And I was like, wow, can't come out of nowhere. It was an overnight dealio. And, of course, Gary Vee's on it. Of course, all the main people who had already known about it before are on it. And I was like, gosh, how are we best going to put the Backpocket on Instagram TV? So what Instagram TV is, and this is what I learned, is it's basically Instagram's version of YouTube. You create your own, use your own profile to create a channel on Instagram TV, and you can post a vertical, like phone vertical post anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes. So it's a longer platform. And it's meant for people to just
Do they have to be 2 minutes? So like
no, they can be shorter. They don't have to be 2 minutes, and it can be any.
Because right now Instagram only allows 15-second videos on the live page or on your My Story page, and then 60-second videos on your post personal page.
Yeah, and I think that totally helps us out as far as what I was thinking was maybe just post our segments on there like we do on YouTube, but just a different video platform. Or video orientation, I should say. Whereas the YouTube is, a typical widescreen view, whereas the Instagram channel is made strictly for your phone. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how everyone receives it. We posted a couple polls and saw that people, a little over 50% of people don't want to watch 2 to 10 minute videos. And I totally agree. Instagram's a very you're in and you're out thing. You're not spending a lot of time. But I think over time, the whole idea behind it is for Instagram to just gain more.
They're trying to take YouTube's
longevity. They're trying to take some of YouTube's market because I bet what they're seeing is there's some crossover between people on Instagram and people on YouTube. So say you get that Casey Neistat to start posting on Instagram, that brings over X amount of YouTube people, and then so on and so forth. That's kind of how you can grow, and it's going to be interesting. I'm excited, and I'm excited to see how we take it.
Absolutely.